Hello everyone and welcome to Avantika Designeering Series or ADS as we like to call it. Every week on Wednesday, we feature design and technology leaders who share their professional journey, their thoughts on their domain of work, and designeering where the world of design and engineering meet. Make sure you follow us on social media Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And with that, let's continue with your show.
Every designer aims to create unique and robust solutions that can imbibe a lasting impression on the users. But design can also amplify business value beyond product and user experience. A good design strategy that is productively balanced between reliability and validity can help brands stay true to their brand promise and integrate more customers to amplify the business value. So, how can designers create a good design strategy, keeping the concept of fail safe and safe fail in mind? To know more about this theme, in this episode, we interact with Anirudh Natu, Director of User Experience Design and Studio Leader India at Globant. With over 2 decades of experience in digital transformation projects, product development, and business strategy, he holds expertise in interaction design, user experience design, user centered design, and much more. And that's why on our journey of discovering designeering, we talked to him about safe fail and fail safe. And hey, do not log out towards the end of the episode. From this month, we're launching a new segment where we feature a design startup studio. And this entire month, towards the end of each show, we will speak with Samyadeep Dey, founder of Tricycle Brand Solution, where he will take us through his organization and the value that they add to their customers. Stay tuned. Hello, Anirudh. Welcome to Avantika Designeering podcast series. It's an honor and pleasure to host you on our show today.
Hi, Rohit. I think it's a pleasure from my side as well. I think I've been seeing, reading about your podcast on several forums, so it's a pleasure to be a part of this as well.
Thank you. So, as an icebreaker question, Anirudh, the evolution of design is about the plurality of the future, that there isn't just one. There are several options available to us, and the choices we now make take us to the future. In an age of design sprints and ever faster design circles, the question that I have for you there is, why and how do we as designers understand the long term implication of our design choices?
I think it's a good question to answer. So, if you typically look at digital transformation projects that are happening, so I think it's a long journey. It's a fairly complex journey that happens these days. The project natures could be of small or longer duration of in nature, and it actually matters a lot in terms of the decisions that we take at any point of time on that project. So these are time box decisions, and the client is always very eager to see something getting realized very fast. They want quick dirty releases of their products as a part of the journey. But I think as designers we need to keep something in mind, which is a long term picture. What are we really trying to solve for this particular engagement? So a 30,000 feet overview, as we always say, for this engagement is very important. And that's why whatever small choices we're making have very deep and long impact in terms of the design choices that we're doing. At the end of the day, all these are going to converge into a seamless experience. And that is something that we always will have to keep in mind as designers. So I think a short answer for you is that this is what we definitely have to keep in mind. And any small thing that we do, say even for example that when you're setting up a baseline for say a web browser based engagement, even a small detail like the pixel sizes that we do for a website, has a very very deep impact, because everything depends on that in terms of a digital transformation journey that you've done for a client. So I think these are small but very very meaningful impact that happen for our clients.
Absolutely spot on, I would say. Small things, as I say, matter much, and the God lies in detailing. And while we talk about the icebreaker. Let's move on to your journey. For almost 2.5 decades of experience in digital transformation programs, interaction design, product creation, and business strategy. I mean, you've developed over the years of experience working in startups, SMEs, and multinational corporations. We would love to hear about your professional journey. How did it all work out? Was it as seamless as it looks like on a LinkedIn profile, or were there a lot of turbulences?
So I think uh, it's journey has been very interesting. I would say, it's all about the choices that do at any point of time in life, and it has a very deep impact in terms of whatever you happens to you in life. So I think if I look at the hindsight for me, I think it's been a very wonderful journey. Life has been great, full of opportunities, full of challenges, and it's always a uphill task. Doing something that you've sort of started and taking it to a completion. So if I look at, say, almost 25 years back when I was out of an ID, I had to get out of uh, the design and went back to my family business. I think learning was completely different then. We were in a 56 kbps era where that was the only thing available. Day before yesterday, I was speaking with my son and I told him that, do you know that there existed something which was called a telex, and that was a stupid looking huge black box which existed into our office, where every month end we used to get something which was a telex, and that was a very precious order that we used to get from our OE suppliers. So we were OE suppliers to, say, Bajaj Auto and companies like them, and they used to send one single liner saying that this is the quantity of the product that we would want, and that machine used to sit there for that particular purpose, doing nothing else but giving one single line of order for us. So that was the kind of journey where I started. It was a traditional, typical manufacturing setup, dealing with people, dealing with business folks, and that is where I learned a lot about costing, pricing, and something which as a designer, you never have to deal with, and that taught me or gave me a complete exposure in terms of how multinational companies really work in this competitive space. So that was the first few years in my life. From there, I went back. So it was an entrepreneur challenge, and the importance of marketing, the importance of reaching out to people, staying connected is something that came along with the side of doing business. So it was quite a challenging and tough scenario where you're dealing with workers on a day-to-day basis. On the other side, you're working with, say, entrepreneurs. You're working with a larger ecosystem of vendors, and trying to make all the ends meet. You're working on finance. You're working on costing, and it's very very competitive environment to think of it. Then came a phase in my life where I said that, well, entrepreneurship is good enough. Let me now venture into something else. So I moved back to the education space. It was felt to be really interesting, and that is where my design education again came back into the picture. So I started setting up the professional setup for a design school in Pune. That is where I started looking at the nitty-gritties of what I had picked up at NID, what design education really has to really pick up and put the baseline values for design students. So it was setting up the entire ecosystem, and it was a very interesting journey. So you're looking at multiple departments, you're looking at the basic infrastructure setup, setting benchmark for students, connecting with the industries, trying to recreate alliances with them, and then see to it that the students are there with the expectations of the industry. And so that was maybe the second phase in my life. And then came the third phase, is what I would say is, as you said, startups, and it was absolutely a wonderful experience to get into it. So I think in the early 2011 or around that, startup was just a sort of a buzzword, and I always was very interested and keen to work into the industry. So I felt that I had enough of education, and let me now go back to the industry. Is where I joined a startup, and it was a wonderful company to look at it. We were almost 40 people as a part of the system. So we had folks who came from design research. We had technical skill sets with us. We had a lot of deep analytics abilities, and then also something where we could completely turn out that into a full-fledged product. So it was a beautiful ecosystem as a part of the startup, and that's where I enjoyed a lot of physical products that we worked with. We worked with a lot of FMCG companies and did some wonderful work at that. Then came a turning point in this whole thing where we wanted to scale up, and that's why we got acquired by a company. And then all of us went into a different league of getting into larger corporations, getting into larger organizations, and seeing what are the systems and processes and complexities of that. And that is where the actual journey of dealing with multiple different stakeholders really started for me. uh, at one juncture of point, then came a point where we were not getting adequate business for product design, and that's where we actually switched the entire team from product design to interaction design. So I always kept writing for some time that maybe my journey, which was 3D, suddenly became a 2D journey, and I was completely flattened to pixel perfect details, and I started looking at interaction design. And over the years, I've started looking at teams. I've started working at design researchers. I've worked with very closely with interaction design, visual designers, technical writers, uh, and a whole lot of bunch of people. And working with them as a cohesive unit is really exciting and very, very interesting. So that's what I've been doing these days. I lead a team. We are completely spread across team across the globe, and virtually I say that we almost design for 24 hours as a part of the company that I currently work with. So it's been really interesting so far.
Wow, that's exciting. I think there are very few individuals who get this opportunity to be an entrepreneur, to work with corporates, to be in academics. I think that's quite an exciting journey. Is there anything left?
Not really, I don't think so. So I don't think I'll ever go back to entrepreneur journey for sure. I'm quite happy with the corporate thing that is happening. So I think I'm content with whatever happening to me so far.
Interesting. So while you were talking about this, Anirudh, as a designer, empathizing with users enhances the products you create because you experience the product as your user does. The better you are at anticipating a user's desires and needs, the more comfortable the user will feel with your design, and the more likely they will be to engage with your product in the long term. One of the key challenges is how designers can positively accelerate consumer acceptance and build momentum in shifting human behavior. What's your view on this?
So I think as a designer, we always have been designing for end customer and a client, and it's for somebody that we're designing for, and it has to be a meaningful product. It has to be a meaningful system. It has to be something which is going to solve a problem. It is going to make somebody's life very, very simple and easy. Be it designing a simple product like a candy jar container, which is for small kids who really get excited to look at that and then eventually land up buying that product, or be it an elderly who is fumbling with just opening the basic mobile phone. These are two extreme spectrums as we would look at from the design point of view. So looking at what and who are we really designing for becomes extremely important, be it any small engagement or be it the large digital transformation projects, be it designing for illiterate women when it comes to simple tasks like form filling, or even recording the meetings, and or making certain things as a part of the whole ecosystem. So I think it's very important aspect to understand the consumers very, very well, because at the end of the day, it's a first impression that's going to matter to the users, and as designers we really have very less time to make that lasting impression in the minds of the users. So it has to be very, very simple, uh, though the underlying the underlying technology may be really complex. But when it comes to something that is going to land in the hands of the users, they should not feel intimidated with it. They should really feel that yes, this is something that I would want to own, and this is something that I want to really use, and this is meant for me. So that me aspect is very, very important And that is where we as designers really have to step back and put ourselves into those shoes of the customers. And really, that is important for us. So I would say that design right, test it quite early, and tweak it fast if it's needed. That's really very very important, because at the end of the day, you may feel that you're doing something, but if it's not right, I think it's better to go two steps back, and then tweak it and make the best product available for the end users. So it's better to fail early rather than failing miserably at the later part of the life.
Hey, did you know Globant's Digital Disruptor Award seeks to reward individuals who stand out and go above and beyond to ensure their organizations remain at the forefront of the digital revolution? Wow, I really loved the way you summarized it in few quick words in terms of how does that entire chain work like. And while we digress to the world of design, coming back to your journey, you and your team at Globant assist companies in reinventing themselves to forge a path forward and realize their full potential, where scale meets innovation, design, and engineering. I think a great blend. However, you must treat them with caution and strategy at the same time. The question that I have for you, Anirudh, is how do designers use these integrations to acquire customers, and what factors contribute to good integration?
So, as you said, as Globant, we really have a very, very agile way of working. Globant, if you look at it, has always been a startup mindset company. It started early in the 2003 as a startup, and it's ever since then evolving as a startup. So, if you look at our DNA, it's a DNA of a startup, and we are a fairly large startup in that sense. So the second USP for us is, one is we have the startup mindset. The second is that we work in something that we call as a pod structure, and it's a very very agile way of working. So there are multiple skill set people who get into a part of a team, and that's the smallest nucleus for any team to get formed. And that's where a lot of collaborative work happens. That is where a designer gets embedded into a part of the team, and that's sort of the secret sauce for success onto most of the projects that we've been doing so far. So the project will only be successful if things are delivered in an agile way, is something that we have realized. And we have almost 2 to 3,000 pods globally, and that is where the success for us lies. So it's the smallest nucleus, as I said, or the smallest integer in the company, which has complete autonomy to really do something which is meaningful for our customers. And they have the full privilege to take decisions for our customers, and on behalf of the customer, they will take the right decisions and tweak the product or tweak the systems as it is needed. And that is something which is a very very innovative thing that is happening, and that is a critical business requirement. And that is where a lot of gap between what was told to what is exactly needed really can be bridged. And so design solutions that we're doing for clients really are extremely agile in nature. They align with the requirements of the client. There is continuous feedback that keeps happening and that keeps coming. That is where a lot of refinements keep happening. So in that sense, I would say that for us, the pod environment ensures that these solutions are feasible. One, from the design perspective, and two, equally from the technical perspective, which align with the product roadmap, and they're extremely feasible. And that is something that we definitely love doing, and that is something that we practice on a day-to-day basis. So there's a lot of cross-functional learning that happens in these environments, and that is the beauty of working onto these kind of larger, smaller engagements. And that's where we can integrate a lot of, or that is where we can acquire a lot of customers.
So, Anirudh, taking a cue from your answer that you just shared, cross-functional teams and agile. My next question actually comes from there. Although technology with rich features and design trends is essential to organizations, the need to focus on the actual customer is at the core of their growth. In fact, regardless of the commodities, smartness, visual attractiveness, or robust characteristics, one of the key factors is always missing if human psychological facets are not produced. The question that I have for you there is the product one that a customer needs, or will it be something innovative packaged with emerging technology and design trends? What are your views on this?
So I think it's a very important question to really look at more from the customer's point of view, more from the product point of view. And as we say that it's very important to understand what is it that the client is really wanting. Uh, tech, feature richness, trends, attractiveness are important to sell the product. They're a part of the marketing gimmicks, I would say, or they're very important for the client at the later part. But at the very core, the basic functionalities of the product are very important. So that's why if you're designing, say, for example, a car, the car has to function first. And then would come the later aesthetics in terms of the skin of the product. So it's a similar thing when it comes to even digital products. So be it a product or a service, I think the product robustness and the flawless functionality is extremely important, and that is where we really need to look at things very critically. So technological features and advancements are always going to be there, which are there to improve speed, there to improve efficiency, but that will be the first and the foremost priority for the clients. And once those requirements are aligned, is where the client will then move to the next engagement, which is looking at and building enhanced experiences that will be the differentiator for them in the market. So overall customer experience, when it comes to overall customer experience as a picture, I think we would definitely look at the needs first, which are basic in nature, and then move towards the innovation, would move towards packaging the whole ecosystem as a more refined, technologically emerged product. And that is something that we definitely will have to keep into consideration.
Interesting. In fact, while you were talking about how uh, we create these robust products that are loved, liked, and customers become loyal to some of these products. Creating the soul of a solution is the most essential and hopefully the most fun task for any designer to undertake. Developing unique designs and solutions allows user to relate and resonate with their vibe or ethos. The question that I have for you, Anirudh, next is, what are some of the ways designers can identify the personality of their solutions and use that as an advantage to communicate with their users?
So, as you rightly said, that can we identify personality for a solution? I think that's a very important aspect to understand. So as we look at personas when we're designing products and solutions, I think it's equally important for us to understand that what is the USP for the service or the solutioning part that we are really working on. What are we designing, what are we really doing, and then go back two steps and say that what is the brand promise. So what is the customer going to expect from this particular product or service or this company at the end of the day, and is my design really matching that. Because at one point of time I'll be promising something through the design on behalf of the company, and are we really matching those expectations of customers, and how truthful is that design is something that we definitely need to look at and align our designs at those levels. So it's very important that, as you said, that the soul of the solution, that lies into understanding that who are we designing for, what are we designing, and what is the brand promise at the end of the day. So I think the core essence is extremely important of identifying all these aspects and then distilling it correctly and then delivering it through the exact communication in terms of the vocabulary that we use, the languaging part, and then aligning it with the end use customers and the end users, and ensuring that we all talk the same language for the target audience and precisely deliver that till the last details.
In fact, Anirudh, very well said, and taking a cue from what you just mentioned about brand promise, the vocabulary, reliability and validity are the hidden forces that shape the way we think as well as decide. In design strategy, there's a hidden tension between these factors that must be balanced productively. The question that I have for you there is, how can designers balance applying the principles of reliability and validity throughout the process of building strategy?
So when it comes to a typical product design or typical mechanical design, we have heard this term called fail safe and fail safe. So I think it's very interesting. Fail safe and safe fail are two diagonally opposite things of it into traditional product design. One gives us a sense of absolute robustness. So if you say fail safe, this is just never going to fail, and it's extremely robust kind of thing. It's reliable, and that is something that we ensure when we say fail safe, and that's a part of the strategy. On the other side, when we look at safe fail, I think it ensures that whatever has been designed is going to fail at some point of time, but will fail safely. And I think we as designers have to keep these two extreme tension points in a way in mind, and then build our solutions around it. Because at any point of time, even if the design fails, it's okay. It may fail, but let us ensure that it fails in a safe manner, and that is something we as designers have to always keep that aspect in mind. So it ensures that the principles of reliability and validity both are equally balanced.
Hey, did you know Globant was recognized as a 2020 worldwide leader by the IDC MarketScape? This recognition highlights Globant's work to drive a better experience for clients around the world. Again, that's beautifully summarized. I love that connotation of fail safe and safe fail. Very, very beautifully put across. In fact, having been an entrepreneur in past, I could completely relate to what you just mentioned. And while we've been talking about all of this, one of the other touch points that I would like to discuss about is the world of user experience design that you operate in. In fact, design is a crucial driver of business success and is the only way companies can stand out from the crowd. The question that I have for you, Anirudh, is how do designers ensure that they amplify the business value that design can have beyond the product and user experience?
So if you look at design today, design is just not limited to only a product or service. It starts with your brand. It stands with your brand language, the brand promise that you do, and every single touch point that really the customer is going to get connected with. It's sort of a complete service experience that one would be going through at multiple touch points. So in a way, what we're designing is for every single touch point. Uh, and it has to work seamlessly like a concert. So every single thing that you're doing has to sort of look and feel like an orchestrated experience, and has to blend extremely well with each other. So moving forward, design and designers have to keep this aspect in mind, that well, I'm a part of a much larger ecosystem, and whatever I'm doing has to gel well into a system which may be designed by me, or may not be designed by me and my company, but should at the end of the day deliver something which the customer would experience as a great experience. It could be a service, or it could be a solution that has been a pointed solution for them, but that is something that will always be important moving forward. And I think that's very, very important for us. It's going to be a life changing experience moving forward with all the design solutions that we're doing. So at the end of the day, we are somebody is investing into these designs, and the approach that we take has to be sustainable. It has to be a long term thing, and ensure that whatever business changes happen, it fits into this jigsaw puzzle quite well. And at the end of the day, it is a profitable venture for somebody who is investing money and time for these efforts.
Absolutely well said. In fact, Anirudh, business is changing from a knowledge paradigm to transformational paradigm. They are using a design strategy to maximize market adoption and get critical mass that permits a leader position in the market. I would like to know, how can designers create user experiences that deliver value in every touch point, and how do they transmit the brand values during the experience?
So as I said earlier, also, it is going to be a long journey for every one of us in terms of the service experiences or brand experiences or user experiences that we create. So at the end of the day, these have to be really frictionless, smooth solutions for the end users. The user does not really matter what is the underlying adaptation of technology, how mature is your system, how robust are the solutions that you're really thought for them. But at the end of the day, they should function seamlessly. And that is where we'll have to really adopt to a lot of newer technologies going forward. We can't be really shy of them. Newer things like artificial intelligence, machine learning are making a lot of impact. They're rather giving a lot of predictive insights in terms of how the users would be behaving with the systems and making meaningful suggestions for them, making their life more simpler. I think that is where we are completely moving towards from a business point of view. Technology is enabling us. Technology is moving way fast and rapidly. It's changing. So I think it's in a way sort of spoiling our customers, for good, and customers are wanting that wow effect in every single thing that they are touching, interacting with. And I think that is where we'll have to sort of emerge and lead towards, so services are emotional journeys, and we really need to craft an experiential story. What is the experience that this brand or a service or this design is offering me? And I think that's a peculiar style or emotional reaction that people will eventually have when they start interacting with us through these products. So I think that's going to be a paradigm shift in a way.
Absolutely. In fact, digital transformation is essential for every business to grow in today's time. It locates transformation into the digital realm. And after all, businesses and customer bases are made up of people, and it's only in the culture and behavior of an organization that true transformation can occur, Anirudh. What is your view on this? What is the role of design, according to you, in leveraging the opportunities of new technologies and their impact in a more innovative way in the future? Since you touched upon AI, machine learning, what's your thought process on this?
So as I said, things are evolving very rapidly, and business is all about people and making their life more simpler. So technology change is extremely rapid, and I've been talking about that quite often in this discussion. So when we look at technology, there is a lot of augmented coding which is coming. There's a lot of augmented design which is really evolving, and we are also talking about even augmented getting deeply into the recruitment space, into every single space that we're talking about. And that is where business is going to really be leveraging all the modern technologies. So they're making a real deep impact into the way business is moving. There are business hacking studios, as we call at Globant. There are these newer technology studios that we are really working with. So I think as designers, we really just can't be shy of technology. We have to embrace technology to its fullest extent. Be it understanding what is robotic process automation and what happens there is extremely crucial and important for us, and we should rather leverage that and see that what are the ways we can simplify somebody's life. How do I integrate few of these technological solutions, be it AI, be it the augmented coding, be it robotic process automation. Let me think through and bring those into a part of my offerings and solutions, and say that okay, if there are certain processes that were really mundane, how can we move them toward the technological solutions, and make this redundant mundane work for somebody take over by these process automations that are already existing. And that's where we as designers will have to precisely map these opportunities to multiple journeys and experiences that we keep mapping, and say that, well, as a designer, see that these are opportunities where technology integration has to happen, and these are the right touch points, or these are the solution integration points where this embedding of things has to happen. That is my recommendation. So I think it's more of a master-slave relation. So technology has to be a slave, and we have to ride over that technology, and be in a commanding position and use it to the fullest extent when it comes to these business solutions. Is what I feel.
So, Anirudh, that brings us to my last question. At Avantika University, we've coined the term designeering, a unique combination of design and engineering. Do you think both of these concepts blend in your work? And could this philosophy help young designers achieve something exceptional?
Yeah, I think designing is a very unique approach and a term that you coined. I completely feel it's very interesting thing to happen. You just can't be shying away and saying that, well, I am a designer, or I am an engineer. But the way you just blended this, it's really interesting. And I think as designers, we always are used to blending a lot of things. We are always into morphing things, and you've morphed this term quite well. And kudos to it. It's a great thing to happen. So, if I look at it more from an industry standpoint of view, I think that is where I would say that we are also looking at something that we call as full stack engineers or full stack designers. And that's where it completely resonates what you guys are trying to really work with. So, I think design engineering is the next thing going forward, and I definitely see a great future in that.
Great. Thank you so much, Anirudh, for this lovely conversation. It was truly inspiring and lots of learning for our listeners. Thank you again on behalf of all of us for joining us on our show.
It was pleasure, Rohit, and looking forward to more and more such interactions in the future. Thank you very much for having me on this show.
And hello, everyone. Welcome to our new segment on ADS Podcast, where we will be introducing a supporting design startup studio, which will go on to speak with you across the entire month. And as a part of the first organization, as a part of this series, we are happy to be interacting today with Samyadeep Dey, founder of Tricycle Brand Solution. Welcome, Samyadeep, to ADS Podcast.
Thank you very much, Rohit. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Super. So, Samyadeep, my first question: what inspired you to start Tricycle? Is there a story there?
Absolutely. There cannot be any initiative like this without a story. So the story is as such. I've been working in the consulting, kind of space for quite some time now, 15 plus years actually to be precise. And in course of my professional career, one found that one was only interacting with so-called established companies. They tend to understand brand building well. They have set practices. They have got set teams. And that always prompted me that if only we are taking care of established guys, who is taking care of the newer ones? And that prompted me to actually start Tricycle to take care of family-owned businesses, newer enterprise, new entrepreneurs, and take strategic brand building as a discipline to them, so that they can make the most of the kind of options that are available to them, and we can create more value for their respective businesses. And it's been a great journey, full of learning, full of adventure, if I may say so. And most importantly, we have been able to create considerable amount of impact through our engagements, and that is the most satisfying aspect of our journey. And we hope to be the preferred branding agency for new age enterprise, and contribute effectively in their journey to becoming strong brands.
Wow, that's an interesting story there, Samyadeep. I mean, with the entire startup ecosystem in India opening up, with family businesses becoming more professional, I think branding is an important area which is largely ignored. And with partnering with organization like yours, it gives a lot of entrepreneurs a new opportunity to go out and innovate there. So that brings me to my next question, Samyadeep. Can you tell us about Tricycle Brand Solution? What exactly is it that you assist your customers with?
Surely, Rohit. As the name suggests, tricycle is a very interesting name. I mean, it's part of our, childhood. It's kind of draws nostalgia. It's tricycle happens to be your first vehicle, actually. When you are as a kid out there to discover your world. So, tricycle is strategy oriented, design focused, and communication integrated outfit. Which means that we go about creating a strategic roadmap. We understand the business, we understand the goals that are important for an organization. Thereafter, we assume the role of a design agency and create a distinct interpretation of the brand for you. Again, to take care of the day to day operations, to ensure that there is consistency this all throughout and there is no dilution, we also assume the role of a communications agency or an advertising agency and take care of your day to day communication. So what essentially happens is strategy, design, and communication all come together to create a cohesive kind of an interpretation and which is consistent across touch points, and as a result of it you get a very a well interpreted kind of an answer for the brand, and you go about creating consistent projection all throughout. And this is the need of the hour, to be able to marry strategy to design and infuse technology as a result of it. And that's how we are probably adding value through our engagements.
Wow, Samyadeep, that is amazing. In fact, we completely believe in the power of blending. And while we keep talking about designeering, which is blend of design and engineering, adding to it the entire element of business and then looking at the branding side of it is pretty unique. This is an exciting start, and for all our listeners, we will continue talking to Samyadeep in the coming weeks as well, where he will share with us about his customers, case studies, how has he gone and add value to them. We will be talking lots more with him. So stay tuned for all our episodes this month with Samyadeep Dey from Tricycle Brand Solutions.
Hey there, we hope you enjoyed our show. Do write to us on ads@avantika.edu.in. We look forward to your opinions, feedbacks, and suggestions of speakers you would like us to host on this show. Do tune in our channel next week on Wednesday for a new story on Hubhopper or wherever you get your podcast from. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter.